Welcome everybody to the July coaches meeting, and we're really glad to have you all join for a very interesting conversation that we have planned for you today. And my name is Tally Walsh. I'm the director of NCL, and this meeting is for coaches to share with one another, ask questions, give their best practices to others so that we can all learn from the experience. And we actually have a great agenda today with two of our coaches who are actually going to be presenting. So with that, I'll go ahead and get us going. But before I talk about the agenda, I just want to point out that registration is opening August the 23rd for the fall NCL season, and the gym is opening at the same time on the same day. There are two documents here that I'm sharing with you. They are available on our Google Drive, and I'll be happy to put the link into the chat here. But this is so that you can really let others know, let your students know, let other coaches know about NCL who may not already be familiar with it. And the student flyer also does provide the actual dates for registration, the deadlines and everything. So just wanted to remind you all of that. And then the other thing, in case you're not already aware, is that on the NCL website at nationalcyberleague.org, under the Coaches tab, you can always find the upcoming schedule for these coaches calls, and there's also a link to get to the recordings of the past coaches calls, which by the way are also on the National Cyber League YouTube channel. So let others know about it so that they can find out more. And then finally, I did want to mention that the NCL Coaches Committee is in full swing. We've just had another meeting. And this committee is sort of a microcosm of the broader coaches group and is helping to direct our activities under the leadership of the interim Coaches Committee Chair, who also happens to be the new NCL Commissioner, David Zeichick, who you'll be hearing from later today. So with that, here is the agenda. And so first off, we are going to talk about HBCUs in particular, but also I think we'll broaden out the conversation a little bit with Bob Burke from Howard University, who is also on our coaches committee. Bob and I had a great discussion talking about underserved communities and what does that mean, and really talking about inclusivity in general. So I'm sure that Bob will go into more detail about that. And we'll also talk about specifically the HBCU scholarships, which the NCL board has been gracious enough to provide for the last 2 seasons. And the opportunities that provides to both students and coaches. And then we'll move on to a topic that we have gotten started on already, which is the steps for incorporating NCL as labs in your syllabus for the fall. David Zeichick has a great document that we started through the coaches committee, and he's going to share that with you and solicit your input and your reactions. So we're basically putting together a step-by-step guide that should help other coaches as they're considering making this move. And then finally, we'll spend a few minutes talking about bulk purchasing and the purchase orders if your college has been using this in the past, just to make sure that the recent change to having Cyber Skyline organize it has been registered with your college and that you know what to do and are well prepared for that. So with that, let me turn it over to Bob Burke.
Okay, and I'll get started. I'm Bob Burke, located in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I work at Howard University, which is in Washington, D.C. I got a one-pager, not going to go heavy today. And I was asked to kind of talk about it. I work at an HBCU, historically Black college or university, but we've been doing an effort with the NCL to do outreach to HBCUs and to other minority serving institutions, and just trying to broaden participation. NCL has been wonderful with offering scholarships, and almost any student who's from one of these institutions who wants to apply, I believe, is getting a scholarship or a coupon to participate in either the fall season last year or the spring season of this earlier this year. So there have been scholarships. But what I thought I'd talk about today, and I'm interested in, but I wanted to get feedback from the other coaches, was about outreach and inclusion. And it doesn't matter who, what group, we want all students to participate, of all skill levels, of all backgrounds, from all communities. However, there may be something that a student brings because they come from a community or a background or a culture that we need to be aware of or sensitive to, and be able to really work with them. So I'm going to throw a couple of things up. I'm also going to post in the chat a survey we're doing. We're doing research on how we can be more effective in our training. And what we're trying to do is understand what variables should we be looking at? Things like the student's background, what's their objective, what's their learning style preferences, how complex is the subject matter we're working with, how much time do they have to spend, how do we best communicate with the student, what gets their attention. And then there's an area, and I'm going to talk about it a little later, about their comfort, their confidence. Do they feel safe? Do they even feel safe walking into an environment or into a room where a competition is about to kick off, where they might be judged and they don't want to raise their hand, ask the stupid question, the silly question that we really want them to ask? Okay. So anyway, we do have the initiative. We're doing outreach to all kinds of schools, trying to drive up participation. My role has just been spread the word, encourage people to come, and then pretty much, be it Kali or Franz or any of the members of the NCL team, Kate, have been leading the meetings to help train coaches, help even, as you know, train students. The more the better. Everybody's welcome. And we've had, I guess, modest results. And I think the one thing I'll say is with students and students everywhere, they're busy. They seem to be busy. We don't know if the word is getting out to them or they're just too busy to sign up. So what tally we had, what about 60 scholarships were given out last year, or coupons, 60, maybe more.
It was about 60, it was over 60 in the fall, and then in the spring it went down a little bit.
Yeah. And one comment I'll make is a number of schools, for example, we have research grants. We use our research grants for our students. We had 40 students participate. So we're not going to use scholarships if we have other funding. So that's not an indication of who's participating. Okay. Right. So what I wanted to do today was get the discussion going. We can, I think it's a small group, Tally. Feel free to speak up on the call or post to the chat window. But any feedback on what variables, what lessons learned about reaching out to students of different communities, what things should we be mindful of? And I'll say, admittedly, I don't know. I come from a different background than academia. So I'm struggling how to speak student. I'm of a different generation. I'm a little more mature. So there's a generational thing going on that I'm trying to navigate. But how about I post the link to the survey, which is at the bottom of this chart. I'm going to post that to the chat. Takes about 3 minutes. Don't do it now, but if you get a chance, blow through that. I don't think any of the questions are mandatory, so you can answer what you want to answer, but we're really anxious to get as much feedback as possible. And then Tally, we'll share the results. Love to share the results with this team, with this community. we can publish it, or we can come in and talk to it, whatever you see fit. Okay. So with that, let me pose the question. If we're working with students from different communities, underserved communities, what kinds of variables or factors should we be sensitive to as we try to engage those students and make those students successful? Anybody?
I'll take a stab at that one.
Thank you. Thanks.
So I also am not sure what to look for, but I teach in the high school level. I teach at Richmond Public Schools, which is an inner city school, predominantly African American. I'm almost willing to say 100%. But I am of the belief, if you build it, they will come, as long as they know where to go. So I think the biggest challenge is how to direct students, whether it be middle, high school, or college, to programs that exist maybe somewhere other than their school. So for example, we don't have a cyber league at our school. I'm trying to build it. I want to be the upcoming coach, but my cybersecurity skills are more on the networking side than on the cyber analyst side. So although when I was in college, I dabbled a little bit with our cyber defense team, looking at Wireshark for hours just makes my head hurt. So, you know, I would like some help in figuring out how to coach these students, even if it's trying to find, you know, a local undergrad or graduate student at one of the local universities who have played in the cyber range to come and help. But going back to your question, I really think that it's a matter of showing them where they can go, how to be a part of this, because I can tell you from somebody who is also a business owner and a teacher that employers are looking for students who have the skill set from the National Cyber League.
Yep.
If you can show an employer that you are, say, nationally ranked, that's so much more important to an employer than even a 4-year degree at a university. I mean, I hate to say this and no offense, but it really is. A student who's competed for a couple years and has done this red team, blue team, that's who employers want to pay the money to, because they've got a proven track record. Even though it's in a sandbox, it's no different in real life. And that's who employers look for. If we can get that message to students that this is really a true gateway to employment, I think we could get a lot more buy-in.
Great narrative during an interview, isn't it?
I mean, so just a case in point, I've got a friend of mine who helped actually build the program at my alumni. He is doing an internship with a really big company right now, and he mentioned there's tons of interns there, but their IT department also has a cyber department that's separate from the IT department. He is the only intern in the cyber department. IT has a bunch of interns, but he's the only one that got the internship to the cyber, and that's because he is ranked with NCL. He has competed at competitions. He has a proven track record, and that got him this internship that's probably going to get him a really, really good paying job at a company when the company hired tons of interns for the summer from all different, you know, engineering, IT, but he is the only one that got the cyber internship, and it was 100% because of his work with National Cyber League and cyber ranges.
Yeah.
I'd like to invite Sonny to weigh in or to speak up. He messaged me about needing to go through the training and what it entails. Sonny, maybe tell us a little bit about your situation.
Yeah, we're Community College of Philadelphia. We are serving the minority population as well. And we looked at this program, and I have to agree with Sir Haley here. how do we start? Obviously, as a coach, it's good to know some of the lingos, whatnot, and for us to even talk to my dean, my staff, I need to maybe go through some of the training that that requires for our students to do something with this great program. That'd be fantastic.
Awesome. Thanks, Sonny.
Yeah.
Anybody?
Costas, you're waving.
Yes, just a thought. Maybe the time has come to think about some kind of a hub and spoke model where mature NCL organizations, whether they be community colleges or universities, develop under some incentive a set of spokes towards, let's say, high schools in the area or special high schools in the area or high schools with special demographics in the area, and become mentors. This is something that can't be done from NCL in the middle. It has to be done locally to understand the culture and to understand the pressures and to understand the state economic educational system and so on and so forth. So a hub and spoke kind of a process. And again, I mentioned incentives. Maybe NCL, instead of providing, let's say, I'm just making this up, instead of providing direct scholarships to HBCUs or MSIs, minority serving institutions, maybe NCL should provide small grants to these hubs to allow maybe a graduate student or a good student that, for community colleges to take on a role and maybe have a Friday night event where high schoolers can come in and so on and so forth. I'm just thinking out loud with you that maybe it's become time to start the spoke model. Thank you.
And I'll just
I think that's a
introduce
great
Costas.
idea.
Costas as on the NCL board, so he's speaking from the position of one of the people who provides the scholarship. But thank you for that. Hallie, you had something.
I just was saying, I think that is a great idea. These coaches who've done this for a couple years, who have the experience, sharing that with the junior people, the new oncomers, the people who say, I'm interested, but I'm not sure if I know enough. Well, you don't need to know enough. You just need to know the right person who knows enough. And that's exactly what he was saying. And I think that's an incredible idea if you guys could make that happen.
Yeah.
I'll call on Aurelia, who is also on our coaches committee, also from an HBCU, and has, I know, some specific perspectives on this matter.
So two things. I do agree, when you have someone that have the experience, it makes the difference. Earlier this year, one of our students participated, Richard, I can't think of his last name, and he actually he didn't get as far as I would like for him to get in the gym, but he used his experience with an interview for KPMG and now has a very good position working in cybersecurity for KPMG. So I'm asking him, I just spoke with him recently, and I'm asking him to come back. And one of the things that I am realizing as I spoke to students and tried to get started or excited about NCL earlier this year is that because they have no experience before and they're unsure of themselves, they're scared. So I'm asking him to come back and lead a class in person with them, so that they feel like they have that person there that they can talk strategy with or speak with it and see if they can get ahead. I think the issue is, and I'm always fighting for this, I think the issue is when they feel like there's no one there that they can relate to. And I'm Afro-Latina, so I've encouraged not only Latina individuals, but African Americans to actually look at cybersecurity. They feel like there's no one there that they can go to and ask a question to, because they don't see anyone that resembles them, but they feel comfortable just going to ask them. So they back away, and they back all the way away. And in this world of instant gratitude that most of this generation is accustomed to, we're fighting that, trying to get them go. Just be patient with us, learn a little bit, learn some more, and then you're gonna even become more amazing. So I think the question that I believe, I'm gonna say Dr. Burke, I'm gonna say Bob to be safe. The question,
Please, not a doctor.
okay, I'm sorry, Dr. Burke asked, is Bob. Okay, I'm getting it right. Asks is a very good question, and that's a question that I've been battling for 2 years. How do we get them to the table? And so this year, like I said, I'm trying 2 new things. One, I'm bringing out the food. I'm having sessions. I'm actually going to learn it. I know most of it because I actually worked in it for a while at a hospital, but I'm actually going to take the time out to actually really take the time to go through the classes, and I'm bringing out the food, and we're going to have lunch sessions where we're actually going through it together. I think once I get them started, they'll take off on their own.
Yeah. I got some great advice from a colleague who didn't go to college, came through the military, works in cyber today, and teaches. And he said, get the student to find out what they like to do, because cyber is so broad. Do they like pen testing? Do they like, maybe they like policy? If you can find out what they like, then you can start deep diving and it becomes addictive. And you can fashion their learning path around what they like to do. And then the other thing I learned is not to talk to the kids in a traditional way, but kind of very informal coaching sessions and kind of sit with them for a while. And that sometimes will encourage a question out of a person who's reluctant to ask a question, right? And you can kind of feel their energy. You can see their eyeballs. You make them feel safe. And once we're doing something, they get some progress, and progress feeds progress. And that was my concern, is the kids that don't raise their hands are the ones I really want to talk to me. What's going on? Are you getting this? Do you understand? I will pause.
I've got something to share.
Kim.
Yes.
Hi, Kim Dillon from CSU Pueblo. I work for Dr. Roberto Mejias. I'm a grant coordinator for him and Dr. Massey, but I was a coach at a high school prior to taking this position. And one of our current coaches, John Freeberg at Centennial High School in Pueblo, he came up with a really great format last year, and he picked some of his students. He's an ROTC instructor, and the students led the whole program during the day to coach other students. So he assigned people, they had a little agenda, they had pizza during the middle of the day. And I know it's kind of challenging, at least this past year, with some of the COVID restrictions. So he just had it in person for his team, because they were in-person learning, but they made that open through Zoom as well. And the students really take a lot of ownership when they can teach other people.
Excellent. Other thoughts to help those coaches who might be wondering how they can get started, or what they might be able to do for, especially for people who have obstacles in terms of being able to access, the games, access knowledge. Well, in fact, this conversation does lead directly into the next portion of the agenda with David Zeichick, but I don't want to move on until we're sure that everybody's gotten their questions out. Or Bob, did you feel like you've had enough of a discussion on this at this point?
No, it's great. It is what it is. I'm going to post to the link to, if folks have a chance to hit that survey or after the call. That would be great if there are any feedback, any additional feedback you want to give. But no, thank you, Tali. This has been great.
No, thank you very much. Costas, did you have another thought?
Yeah, Tali, just to finish this part of the discussion, yourself and David and myself and others will be getting together very soon to discuss kind of the strategic future for the National Cyber League. I propose, given this positive reaction from this group of coaches, that we actually proactively think, not for the fall season, but perhaps for the spring season of 2022, we think about some way to use the coaches committee and maybe a small number of pilot coaches, if you will, around the country, geographically dispersed, distributed, and fund some support systems. And again, I'm thinking support not so much in terms of subscriptions or coupons, but more like being able to hire a student to spend some time and buy the pizzas and do whatever is necessary to promote this hub and spoke model. Otherwise, it'll just be a good idea that disappears. And since I'm the finance director for the National Cyber League, I know I can make it happen, but I'd like the support of this group, of course, and that of David as the commissioner. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, David Zeichick, our incoming NCL commissioner, you're up.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Tali. So yeah, I agree. I think this does lead well into what I wanted to talk to the group about, which is incorporating NCL into curriculum. So I'm going to post here a link to a Google Doc. So I just put it in the chat. And you know what, Tali, I think this time I will share my screen just so I can point at what I'm talking about. So there we go. You guys can see my screen. All right, so this is a document that I am encouraging everyone to contribute to. So it's a living Google Doc. And the idea here is to put in a form, and this right now kind of this brainstorming form of all of the ways that you have incorporated NCL into your curriculum. And the reason for that is because, since some of us have already done that, we want to be able to tell other coaches how to successfully do that. Now, all coaches might be a little bit different. You might have different classes, different type of students, but I kind of wanted to have a good kind of general consensus of different ways of how to incorporate NCL into your class. So I think this kind of answers one of the questions of, how to, one, bring more students into NCL and get them excited about cybersecurity. If we can have instructors incorporating this into their class, then that will introduce the NCL to more students. But incorporating NCL into your class, can be a little bit maybe off-putting at first because it's just kind of this big concept of how do I do it. So that's the idea behind this document. It's kind of for us to show people how we've done it, and then for them to kind of take that step of like understanding how incorporating NCL into your class, into your curriculum is beneficial. So going to the document itself, and again, as you're looking through this, feel free to add anything you want. If you want to reword something or have a thought on it, you can always highlight it. And then you can right click and add a comment. So please do that as you're reading through. But the first thing, and this is something I just actually added a little while ago, was the benefits. So I thought it would be a good place to start to kind of do like the sales job of why is it a good idea to add NCL into your curriculum? How does it help? So I have just a few bullet points that I just thought of. One that kind of really hits home to me is the hands-on labs. So I'm trying to think of, well, why did I do this, and why would this be beneficial to other students? Well, if I don't have labs that are already created for me, I have to create them myself. So one, that's extra work for me. Two, when I'm creating new labs myself, there's obviously going to be, some growth to them. There can be some flaws here and there. Well, if I'm incorporating the NCL labs into my class, then those are kind of the ones that are already been vetted and we know they work well. So this whole taking a lab and then that the NCL has created, and when I say the NCL labs, what I'm specifically talking about are the all the practices in the gym. Because if you remember in the gym, there's basically, you know, kind of the practice NCL, and it looks just like the NCL. However, it has PDFs which walk you through how to complete each of the challenges. So that's why I'm calling it a lab, because it's teaching the student how to, you know, do a particular task. And I use those as my labs because they're great. They're not only do they prepare the students for the NCL, but at the same time, they're also, you know, teaching the student a new concept, how to use a new tool. A different one of the different, you know, all the different categories of NCL are covered in the in the gym. So that was one bullet
I
point.
guess I'd just add to that the fact that these labs are already a great equalizer, because no matter what platform or technology is available to the students, they can access the lab safely, and as you say, they've been vetted, and they're able to do all the work that's required of them with these already created labs.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was just one of my bullet points. I don't think I'm necessarily going to read through all of the different benefits, but if you can think of just kind of a highlight of why is it beneficial for an instructor to incorporate the NCL into their curriculum, you know, I'm just looking for some more bullet points there. So just to kind of pause and kind of recap one more time, this is kind of our brain dump of how it's beneficial to incorporate NCL. The kind of the long-term idea is to, you know, obviously clean this up and put it into some fancy type of thing that Tally will help us with to make it look nice and also easy for instructors to kind of, you know, to look at, understand, and use as their, you know, their roadmap, their to create the class itself. Or I would say probably a better way to say that is how to take the NCL and incorporate it into their class. So I've got.
I'll stop you a second there and just check in with people. Who already has a guide that they use for coaches or instructors? Does anybody on this call already do that? Because we'd love to have examples of what you use and add them to sort of a resource repository that we're building. Anyone?
Well, this is Curtis, and you know, I used Crypto Kate's when she first put that one out 2 years ago, and I've just added to that as we do different types of themes. My courses that they have to take this class is in the springtime. So in the fall, like this fall coming up, I don't run it as a class, I run them as a club on campus. So I get those who are not in computer security or other types of computer classes, they join it as a club member also. So I'm actually reaching different kinds of people, such as nurses and criminal justice students and so on as a club. But I also incorporate it into my classes. So I will share into this document some of the things I'm doing for that.
Great, I appreciate it.
Thank you. And just to mention, we do have Curtis is on the coaches committee, as is Eric. And I think that's it on the so far who has joined this call, who's on the coaches committee. And we thank them very much for their time.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so kind of going down the list here, like I said, the next piece is kind of the introduction overview. So kind of introducing the NCL. Next is classes NCL can be incorporated into. You know, what else can you use the NCL in your class? You know, on the coaches committee, we talked about, well, almost any, we use it in undergrad classes and grad classes. So that kind of covers almost every class. And I also use it in both my intro and my advanced security class. So I don't know. What I'm looking for here is just kind of a list of for other instructors to be able to go down the list and go, oh yeah, that's my class. Oh, I see someone else is already using the NCL in their class.
So along with this, my college just now approved me to online be offering it for high school students, a 1 credit college course, but we're training them in NCL with also all of our NCL tools that we've been doing. And this past semester, I had 19 students in high school doing that. So high school wise, with some college credit also might be a potential there to reach out.
Oh, there you go. Yep. So we could add that. High school students taking a
Yeah, so it's concurrent, you know, basically.
class. Yeah. So however you want to change that, add to that, that's great. I think that's a good point.
And all those students are 100% online. So, you know, I'm reaching students. I'm in Oklahoma and I've got students from Alaska and Florida. So
Wow.
it's just a larger group.
Yeah. So this is a concurrent class where they are able to take a college class for 1 credit
Yes.
while they're in high school. Great. Yeah, that's a great idea.
I got a question. So down under environment, under Chromebooks, it says NCL will be offering Kali instances that is accessible via a browser. So again, that's one of the big problems we have in high school is our kids are using Chromebooks. I've already been shot down by administration for having Windows machines next year that with hypervisors so we can put some bare metal VMs on them. They were like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So our only access to do anything is through, I'm in Virginia, so I use Virginia's cyber range for our labs, but for NCL, you guys will have your own web accessible link or what?
Yeah, I
So-
can jump in here to help answer that. So this is Franz from Skyline. We help run the games. And to answer your question, this is a feature that we have kind of pending. I don't think it'll be ready for the fall. I think this is more likely something that'll be spring or next fall. But the idea is that we have heard a lot of schools exactly like in your situation where they don't have access to a virtual machine and they need that as part of the part of their resources to participate in the games. So we were thinking about ways that we could expand the current offering for schools without increasing the price of NCL. And so what this is currently pending as is a feature where if we can get a school to basically switch from doing a per season, hey, this is how many people we're getting the season, to switch to more of an annual model so that we can more properly understand what the registrations are going to look like within each year. That could be something that we offer basically as the perk for committing to a 1-year term rather than a 1-semester term without any additional cost in the registration. So definitely would be interested in hearing more about how many students you would expect and if that's something that you could get your school to approve. But our goal here is to keep the price the same, but in exchange for providing this additional feature, we'd switch from like a 1-semester term to like a 1-year term.
And just to clarify on that, how will this affect the students that can only access Chromebooks?
So this would mean that if you've got a student with just a Chromebook, it would basically enable the majority of the NCL challenges for them to be able to do without any additional resources. I think it covers basically like everything. There might be some much more specialized tools that we won't be able to support within the platform, but I think especially if you're looking at students using a Chromebook and their NCL experience, I think that the combination of the Chromebook plus the Kali VM directly in the browser will meet the vast majority of what they'll need, especially considering the Chromebook users are typically more of the beginner students. And once you start getting more and more advanced, they're more likely to have their own computer that they can have Kali on. So we're expecting this to be a pretty big bridge for those new students.
Now, I just want to address that because Bob had brought this up earlier. Again, when we're talking HBCUs and inner city, public schools, there is a good chance that some of these kids will never in their early life have the opportunity to have their own computer or have a computer that they would be able to, dual boot or have, a VM on. So just keep in mind that, again, for some of the students that we're talking about here that I've heard of, there could be a situation where, again, they just don't have the money or the resources to have anything other than what the school has given them or provided them.
Yeah, understood. And it's our intention to figure out how can we continue supporting those students. I think the limitations that are with like the Cali, us providing Cali, would be issues with licensing. If like a student wants to use like a specific software and they're using like a free trial, we can't have that pre-installed on there and stuff like that. And so I think it really, our goal is to have like the entire essence of the competition be supported with the Chromebook, with the Cali virtual machine. However, there are going to be students who are like, let me go and like try something off the beaten path, try a different branch. And we might not be able to support those different branches. If they want to use their own specific software that they thought was cool online, it might be possible if you've got your own computer with the Kali VM to install that software on there to not run into licensing issues if you're doing that as an individual. But us as an organization that's going to be providing that, we very quickly run into licensing issues with people doing that.
Students aren't going to have to worry about that because the IT departments have shut it down, so they're not going to be able to download their own software anyway.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying that if they wanted to do that on a personal computer, in theory, they could do that. And so there are definitely NCL students who are doing that if they have their own laptop. But we're limited in the fact that like, hey, we have these Kali machines on there. They're probably not going to be internet enabled because we don't want students accidentally running their scans and their tools on the internet and causing problems. And so it's going to come with whatever is pre-installed. And if you want something that's not pre-installed, there's, we're kind of limited in what we can do there. But what we can do is say, provide all of the basic resources that are necessary for you to participate in the season. And if there's some other path that you want to try, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to support it due to these limitations. But at the very least, we can make the canonical answer, the canonical solution available directly within the browser.
I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a game changer when we are able to offer Kali via the browser, because then, pretty much any computer has a browser, therefore anyone can be running Kali. So I think that's going to be huge for lots of people, high schoolers and all the other range that can't afford a beefy computer. Although Kali doesn't really require anything too beefy, it just requires it to be your own computer.
And I think what we're highlighting here in this conversation is that we're going to have all kinds of different environments, different experiences, different factors for the students as well as the coaches that need to be addressed or at least recognized and acknowledged. So I think that this document, as we can compile that so that people who are reading it can identify, oh yeah, that's me, that's my situation. This is what I need to do in that case.
Yep. All right, since we're running short on time, there's just a couple other categories I really wanted to talk about and get your thoughts on. One, I guess, would be is the class schedule, to talk about that. So what I do is, there's 9 NCL categories, and my goal is to cover all of those categories before the preseason starts, so that students are comfortable with starting the NCL. Now, different colleges start at different times, different high schools start at different times, so you might not actually have 9 weeks before the preseason starts. So what I do is I actually double up on a couple categories on a couple weeks so that I can cover all 9 categories before the preseason. What else? What else does anything else people want to add to that or add to the document about scheduling NCL into the curriculum?
I do the same thing that you're doing. I have to double up.
Mm-hmm.
What about enumeration? That can get deep fast. Do you hit that hard or hit it light? How do you do enumeration?
Yeah, so for me particularly, it's pretty quick. I do a quick overview. That's kind of one of the ones that I'm like, if this is something that really interests you, then the NCL is a great place to go practice it and learn more about it in the competition itself.
Yeah.
I have beginners and advanced. And the beginners, we do a quick hit. On my advanced students, my juniors and seniors, I have labs that we go into more detail on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good thing to point out. Maybe that could be another thing in terms of categories. Might be a good idea to kind of go, at least from everyone's perspective, kind of the level of difficulty for each category. So, which category is going to be more challenging for you to incorporate and teach versus other categories that might be easier to incorporate and teach into your curriculum. So maybe I'll put that right here. Category. And maybe, can I spell categories? Nope. And their, I don't know, difficulty rating. So if anyone wants to take a stab at that, I guess I could just start with enumeration. And what we want to put that one is difficult. Is that your take, Curtis?
Well, again, it's a matter of teaching them the right tools so they could do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So if they don't have the tools, yeah, it's difficult.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'll take a shot at this and put some up there. I'm doing the same thing because I've got my advanced students who do programming, and so they're doing reverse engineering and other stuff. And whereas my beginners, my freshmen or sophomore, they're not into that yet. So
Yeah.
I will spend some time on this and see what I can put up there for you.
Great. Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you. So that's an idea of the categories.
So, yeah, maybe just touch on the grading before.
Yeah, this was going to be the last one.
Yeah.
Because I think this one can be the most challenging. It was pretty challenging for me to figure out, well, the grading for the gym labs is pretty straightforward. Either they finish it or they don't. So it's almost like a 0 or 100%. Now for the actual game, preseason, regular season, and even team game, that's where it gets more challenging to figure out how to assign grades. I'll just put it out there. This was what I do, and maybe other people, you guys can put what you do as well. What I do is I look for the class average, and I take the class average, and whoever gets the class average, they get basically a solid B or an 85%. One problem that I ran into with that is the class average was constantly a moving target, because then more and more people do, the higher that average goes. So they always felt like they were kind of chasing this average. So one thing that I did was I cut off, I don't know, like Sunday morning or so, and I said, okay, this is the class average, and class average might change, but this is the one that we're going to use for grading. And now that I've actually been doing this for several years, I already know what my class average is going to be. So my class average tends to be about 1,000 points. So now what I do is I tell them, if you get 1,000 points, then you get an 85% or a B for that particular competition, whether it be preseason, regular season. Actually, they're just those two, preseason or regular season. Any other thoughts?
I actually have some quizzes I've set up that are based off of what they would see in the gymnasium. Those quizzes help me know their skill sets. And then I give them points for participation in the different, the individual game, team game, etc. So that we have a point system that they got to earn, but the quizzes help me know, do they really do it or not, versus in the gymnasium, sometimes they would just get all the hints and just press on. And
Yeah.
they don't necessarily learn it. So that's why I added the quizzes. But I give them points for participation in all of the sections.
Okay.
So I will mention, because I had this question, whether coaches have access to the labs, and coaches have free access to the labs. So it's definitely an opportunity for you to get a heads up, make sure that you're comfortable with what you're providing in classes, and perhaps even learn while you're at it. So,
In previous coach meetings, we've talked about potentially providing the coaches with a solutions guide also, because they may not even know how to do it themselves.
uh-huh.
So I don't know what the status is on that, but that was a high area that coaches were asking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll ask Franz to answer that one.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the guides in the gym were not good enough, or you talk about which aspect are you referring to?
Well, some of the things I've seen in the gym was you just go straight to an answer, basically. They don't go into the depth of it. And so coaches sometimes will be like, okay, well, how did we arrive at this answer? And they can't explain it to the students. So it kind of, it was difficult in the past couple of seasons. I've done a good job at talking to my students, but I've noticed that my students have said, hey, this doesn't explain how it's done. Just kind of gives me an answer and I move on.
Right. That is something we're actively working on to improve the explanations in the write-ups. So we actually, this past spring, we made a couple adjustments to like web app, the write-ups in web app, and some of the writings in OSI. And we're going to continue doing that over the summer. But yeah, we're trying to address that issue where like the guides sometimes skip a couple of steps, which people take for granted.
Yeah.
And
right.
yeah, so that's definitely a goal that we have right now, is to flush that out over the summer before the season starts, so that
I
that
can
additional
see that
context is there.
Because they did expect that a person would have the foundations, but some of these, well, I'll put it this way: all of my freshmen do not have the foundations at all.
Right. We're putting together specifically like a computer fundamentals to prep people for diving into cybersecurity, because if you go straight into the cyber topics and people don't understand the foundation, then they miss all the context that's necessary to understand the topic.
So I want to allow enough time for the final point, the final item on the agenda. But essentially, this document is a dynamic document. David, I don't know, I think that you might have shared it in the Slack for coaches.
I did. Yeah.
But if not, yeah, we should definitely share it there. And it's something that we ask everybody to continue to contribute to, and we'll keep sending out reminders until people just feel like they have to, just to stop the reminders. Okay, well, thank you, David, and everybody for this discussion. And the final item on the agenda is, Franz, would you take the discussion regarding the purchase orders, because there is a significant change from prior seasons and we want to make sure that everybody is set up.
Right. So for those of you that aren't currently in the loop, we are making a change. We've been making a change over the summer where operational responsibility of the competition is shifting from NCL Inc. to Cyber Skyline Inc. And this really matters mainly if you're doing purchase orders. As part of the purchase order process, typically the accounting department will require some vendor forms, and those vendor forms are going to have to change if that's something that your accounting department does require. And so for those of you who do purchase orders, and I'm going to post the link in the chat, that's the link to submit your request for a purchase order. That process is still unchanged. You will go through, you'll put your information, your name, your email address, how many codes you want, the name of the person in accounting who's going to pay for it. All of that still remains the same. The only difference is that if your school did require vendor information to be inputted into your accounting software, we will need to provide you with the updated forms to do that. So I posted a link to the chat. If you actually want to get started with putting in your request for this season, you can. And please let me know, and I'll post my email in the chat as well, if you know that your school requires vendor onboarding forms as part of the process, or if you don't know the answer to that question, now is a great time to go and ask your accounting department, whoever you worked with last season to do NCL registration. Ask them, hey, if the vendor changes, do we require additional forms? And we can get you settled right now, so you don't have to worry about it in the middle of when the semester starts. And I'll quickly do a screen share just to show what this form looks like if you're not already aware of the purchase order form.
Yeah, and I'll ask Costas whether you have any lessons learned or anything to be particularly aware of since you were handling this before.
No, I would just say don't wait until the last minute. Your accounting department will probably require a W-9 form from Skyline. That's something very simple that provides a tax ID number. So the tax ID number is shifting. No big deal, but they have to have that registered. And some universities and community colleges require an actual full vendor registration on the portal. So just don't wait until the last minute. Try to get it done quickly.
And this is the form here. This is the link that I posted in the chat. You can also access it if you go to the NCL registration page over here. Oops. You go to the NCL registration page, and then you click on the bulk registration button. It will take you to the options. Either if you do credit card payment, that process is exactly the same. That process does not change. And if you do the purchase order, the link here is going to take you to that form. And just let us know if, what your school requires, and we'll be able to assist and do it very quickly over the summer, so you don't have to worry about it when the semester starts. And that's all I needed to cover, Tally.
Great. I really appreciate everybody's contribution today, and this has been a very interesting and important conversation, especially talking about how we can get underserved students to participate. We'll be following up on that. Please join the Slack if you're not already on it. The coaches Slack channel is where we will be sharing information, and you can ask questions as well. And as always, you can feel free to send an email to info@nationalcyberleague.org with any questions that you have. And join us again next month. We'll be meeting again on August 30th. And thanks a lot for everybody's joining us today.